Hey guys, Happy New Year. And this video is going to be, as I promised, the best and worst gear that I think that happened in this decade. Like everything on the internet, there is an argument about when the decade begins and ends. So just so you know, I chose to do it this way because I like to think of things as the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. That's the way I like to think of it. So I'm going to go 2010 to 2019. For clarification, before I start this list, I'd like you to know that these are just my opinions. There's no facts here. It's just what I thought was the coolest piece of gear and maybe the least favorite piece of gear. Best guitar of the decade from 2010 to 2019, I thought was the Strandberg guitars. And here's why. I think Strandberg is one of the first, well, if not the first, one of the biggest transformation guitars. In other words, we took a generation of players from Strat Les Pauls to a Strandberg. Of course, we saw this in the 80s with the Super Strats, but the Strandberg is definitely something crazy. If you haven't played a Strandberg, and this is what I want to say, if you haven't played a Strandberg or picked up that neck, before you ever put a comment down below, I really hope you take the time to try that before you say anything about it. To a lot of players, it is a great guitar. To a lot of players, it's a horrible guitar. That's why I think it stands out in this decade. It's something that's so different that I don't think the average player would pick it up and go, yeah, this is for me. So the fact that it's gained so much ground is impressive. The worst guitar of the decade is the entire 2015 Gibson lineup, mainly because it was a colossal failure, but also I didn't like the guitars at all. The 2015 Gibsons, of course, had the Robo G-Force tuners, the brass nut, which I actually like, but I didn't like that it was wider and it fell off when you took the strings off, and it wore out too fast. I think they had to make like titanium replacements for it. Best amp of the decade, it goes to the 5150, the EVH 5150 50 watt head. And the reason I decided that, from my opinion, was a couple reasons. One, it's a 3-channel amp that actually has 3 good channels. Good clean, good rock, and good metal tone. It contends with a lot of amps that are double the price, plus having, you know, an iconic name like EVH attached to it. The other thing I thought was cool is it comes in like the black and the white, which is a different thing. You don't see a whole lot of amps, especially affordable amps, coming in multiple colors or choices. And the other thing that made it stick out of the amp is even the biggest critique of that amp when it came out was that they were sharing the volume to the clean and the gain channel on the 1 and 2 channels. And they've since fixed that. So that's impressive in itself. Very, very few times do you see an amp company fix or modify an amp based on customer feedback. A lot of companies will fight the customer feedback for many years by like, no, it was designed that way. It's supposed to be that way. So the fact that they did a good job redesigning the amp just made me even like it even more. The worst amp of the decade is actually 2. It's the Excelsior and the Greta by Fender. These are the not Fender amps. This was a horrible idea as far as I'm concerned. Here's why. You have the biggest amp company, guitar amp company in the world, and their great idea is like, hey, let's build 2 amps that we don't put our branding on. Now, I understand they were the pawn shop series, and it was based on something you would want to see in a pawn shop, or you might come across some kind of strange amp. And they're actually not that bad of amplifiers, by the way. For what they are, they were pretty good sounding amps. I like them both. Actually, I prefer the Excelsior over the it's Excelsior, right? Yeah, Excelsior over the Greta. But biggest complaint was, why not just brand them Fender? Even if they were just pawn shop amps, why not just have pawn shop amps that are Fender? They had pawn shop guitars that are Fender. This to me was a big mistake, and I think it was a failure in the marketing of it, of course. This is one that's going to get people upset. The best pedal of the decade. Oh, yeah, right. So I actually have 2, and I had to do 2, and I know it sounds like a cop-out, but hopefully my explanation of the 2 will make a lot of sense. I'm going to start with the one that I think that you guys will understand why I picked it. The BEOD by Friedman. It's a amp in a box pedal platform. In other words, a pedal that's designed to give us, for a $200 price point, a $3,000 amp. And that pedal not only hit the market like gangbusters, they sold, you know, $1 million worth of pedals in the first year. It also has been staying around, and you're seeing it staying on pedal boards. I think based on the market presentation, the sound of the pedal, the quality, And I think that's why I picked it best. However, the reason why there's two in this category is I really feel like the LPD87 also needs a mention, which is the Lawrence Petros pedal. If you're a fan of this channel, you know who Lawrence Petros is. He's a pedal builder who approached me a few years ago. I did some reviews and we became friends, and I love his pedals. Viewers of this channel love his pedals. The 87 is definitely a groundbreaking, amazing sounding pedal. It's on my pedal board behind me, right there. And it's a mainstay on my pedal board all the time. It's a mainstay on a lot of yours pedals on the board. The problem is I didn't want to just put that pedal because so many people don't know what it is. They're handmade by Lawrence. It's a much different pedal than anyone else. Worst pedal of the decade is the Electro Harmonics Crying Tone wah pedal. This pedal, when I first saw it, I thought, what the heck is this? Now keep in mind, I think it came out the same year as somebody came out with a wah pedal that goes in your shoes. I'm not exaggerating. And this pedal was funny because you step on it, as you can see, it rocks like a rocking horse. And the idea is that, you know, you just kind of rock it with your foot. It actually had a complaint. The complaint was it wouldn't fit on a pedal board because there's no way to attach it to anything. It just laid on the floor. So they made a cradle for it. Whether or not I felt it's no good or not, obviously, I think a lot of people agreed. Maybe a couple of you guys out there have this stuff and like it. Put that in the comments down below. I'd love to hear the counterpoint. Maybe we all missed the magic of it through the silliness of the way it presented itself. That's really what it is. I'm not really saying it's the worst sounding pedal, but on the same note, and this is always really important, I want to give Electro Harmonics some credit for trying something different. If companies don't try crazy stuff like this, there's no way we're going to find that next successful crazy product that we like. So kudos for them for trying something crazy, but unfortunately it fell short. This one is another controversial one. This is the best effects unit of the decade. And the best one, I decided, is the Helix Stomp, and here's why. Right now, as the Kemper Acoustics guys are typing all the hateful comments down below, the rest of you guys can listen to this explanation. Hopefully it'll make sense. Although I think, and I can agree with a lot of people, that I think the Acoustics is a better sounding unit than Helix. That's all, of course, opinions, but my opinion is the Acoustics is my favorite of the three, the Kemper, the Helix, of the three, Helix, Kemper, and the Acoustics. The Acoustics is my favorite sounding unit. When I listen to it, it has the best tones, and to my ears, I like it the most. So why did I pick the Helix Stomp? Well, it's the form factor. The idea that what Helix did, I think, is really crazy, because here's why. This year I traveled so much, and I did so much. I was hanging out with touring musicians, I was hanging out with other YouTubers, and what I saw was that pedal everywhere, being used. It wasn't just sitting around, okay? Not saying the Acoustics isn't being used, of course it's being used, but what I'm saying is the Helix Stomp was used in every kind of category I could see. It was being used as a reviewing platform, it was being used as a performing platform, it was being used as a recording platform, it was being used as a backup unit. It was a really impressive unit, and I would be sad if I didn't say what I thought, which is I thought it was the best effects unit of the decade. I don't have a worst effects unit of the decade. To be honest with you, I didn't think it was fair, so I'm going to leave it off of the category. It's my video. I'll do whatever I want. I will tell you my least favorite of the effects units, which was the Head Rush. Although it was a good unit, it's my least favorite of the four mainstays. I even prefer the Boss stuff over it, but it's still not the worst because, like I said, all the effects units are still pretty impressive for the time. Here's another one that's going to be fun, the best solid state amp of the decade. Now, I gotta say the Katana. The reason is, of course, it's affordable. Everybody's using it. It's a great sounding amplifier. And I want to put a caveat on this one. I'm going to say officially that my favorite solid state amp of the decade was the Katana. So there you go. I hope everybody's happy. But I do want to put a caveat that deep down, I really believe the Black Spirit was the best solid state amp. But again, the reason why I picked the Katana over the Black Spirit was the Black Spirit is about 4 times the price. And although it's got some impressive qualities, and I'm really impressed with how loud it is, how good it sounds, how versatile it is, I think the Katana, for the most part, should win just because of the price factor. But I want to give an honorable mention to the Black Spirit because they had brought a great product. I told Hughes & Kettner in Germany, and I hope they took it to heart, that they really need to focus on trying to figure out how to get that technology down closer to the Boss Katana price point, and they would probably dominate the market. That's a great sounding product. If they can get anything close to that thing, down to anywhere close to the price points of Katana, I think you'll see Hughes & Kettner hitting it strong this next decade. Worst solid state amp was the 4-Force RM1. You guys probably don't remember this thing. It was pretty horrible. It was basically somebody took a plastic can, like a gas can, stuck a metal grill in a speaker. They made it for like $138, and of course they don't make them anymore, or at least you don't see them anymore. So that's my worst category. Best acoustic guitar. Now, best acoustic guitar is a little tough because acoustic guitars, for the most part, there's not a whole lot of new brands popping up, and not everything in this list is products that only exist in this decade. It's just the best products of the decade. I've decided that the best acoustic goes to Cole Clark. A lot of you do not know who Cole Clark is. What I want to do is I'll put a link, of course, to a lot of the stuff down below. Cole Clark is a guitar company that's made in Australia from woods that are indigenous to Australia, and they sound fantastic. These guitars price themselves at just below what a comparable Taylor guitar would go for, and as much as I'm a Taylor fan, I'm a Cole Clark fan. I think that if you ever get a chance to see a Cole Clark when you walk by or anywhere at a store or a show, definitely put your hands on it. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. I think they're the company that I think that a lot of companies should look at as an innovative design and a cool sounding instrument. I don't have a worst acoustic guitar because, again, the problem would be I'd be picking on some kind of entry-level acoustic guitar. There was no acoustic guitars that really stuck out to me as being so horrible. Every time I was like, yeah, that's not a great guitar. The price point was like $100, and there really isn't a whole lot of like $3,000 horrible acoustic guitars that I could say. So in this category, unfortunately, we don't have a worst, but that's the whole point. I don't want to make a worst just because the list says make a worst and a best. If there wasn't a reason, I'm not doing it. How about the best inexpensive guitar, or cheap guitar as we know it? Obviously we did the expensive guitars. Let's do the inexpensive guitars. I think the best inexpensive guitar that I saw this decade that I put my hands on was Tagima. And a lot of people still misunderstand how important that is. I have done now a couple videos of Tagima guitars. I have never even met anyone at Tagima, nor have they interacted with me in any way. I had my friend Marty Schwartz bought one of the Tajimas. I bought another one. That's how they ended up on the video. That tells you a lot about how you feel about those products. I didn't need a company to be involved. We found them, loved them, and purchased them. So I really impressed with them at almost all their price points. It's a very impressive brand, and I think if you guys get the chance to check them out, although there's great brands, sure, could I say Harley Benton and all those other brands? Sure, but Tagima is what stuck out to me as the best. That's why I picked it. The worst cheap guitar, I think, for the decade goes to AXL and Johnson, those two brands. And the reason is because there's inexpensive guitars have made huge leaps and bounds this decade between, like I said, what we talked about, the Glaries and the how cheap the Glaries got and how good the Harley Benton's got. SX and Agile guitars. There's so many good, affordable, off-brand guitars out there. I think that the old school AXLs and Johnson guitars that we saw in those little small shops across the country and other places, they're just not up to date, and when you pick them up they feel really outdated. They feel like before the companies really were trying really hard to get your dollar. But I want to talk about some of the most innovative products that I felt happened this decade, and first one goes to the Bonsai pedal by JHS. The reason why is because that's a pedal that I think that most pedal builders, when they saw him come out with that, went, of course, why not just put all the Tube Screamer chips in one pedal? And I've talked about this on the podcast. Somebody asked me, you know, do I have it? Would I like it? And I explained that I already have all the Tube Screamers. But honestly, if you're thinking about getting Tube Screamers and you don't have 2 or 3 already, get that. In fact, I haven't decided why I would want to sell all my Tube Screamers and get that. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised one day if I do, because like I said, having it all in one pedal, it's a good quality pedal. It's under $200, which is this price of 2 Tube Screamers. It's very impressive. And like I said, innovation doesn't have to be the hardest thing out there. It doesn't have to be, oh my goodness, they redesigned everything to the point where, you know, no one understands how it works. Sometimes innovation comes with just a simple idea of, hey, why don't I just figure out how to put all those chips in one pedal and solve everybody's problem. Very cool pedal for sure. And the most innovative guitar amp goes to the Pete Thorn PT15 by Suhr. Because I decided that because, one, it's a great sounding amp, it's a cool amp, but more importantly, when I was at the NAMM show in 2019 in January, I have never heard so many amp companies say the same thing in one place, which was, we are going to have a IR system built into our amps in the future too. Everybody seemed like they were immediately, like that amp really shook the industry as a whole, as everybody's really going to focus on that. Now, I understand that Rev has an amp that's like it. I want to give them the honorable mention, although their amp is more affordable. It's nice. It's a pedal platform product, and it's a little different than the PT. So again, they also came with the idea, so I don't want to not give them credit for also having the idea simultaneously to put the IR loaders in the amplifier. Most innovative guitar of the decade, I decided for me, it's again my list, it's the Music Man Majesty, the John Petrucci Majesty. That guitar is a guitar that, even though there's so many fantastic guitars, like I said, the Strandberg, very innovative. When I say the Majesty, one thing I will say is the acoustics on that, the acoustic sound on that is mind-blowingly good. It just really sounds good. The guitar is very comfortable to play. It's out there, it's different for sure, don't get me wrong. It sounds great, it's a performing piece. For sure, it plays fantastic, and you're seeing it more and more, and I just really thought it was a cool guitar, and I definitely have to give them credit. Even the aesthetics of it, although are odd, very innovative, and the idea that the carbon fiber part is actually wood, it's a very cool guitar, and that's why I picked it. That was my most innovative guitar of the decade. Now, this is a category I decided to add in. It's brand image. Who had the best brand image in this decade, and who had the worst? And I think the worst is going to be very predictable, unfortunately. The best is Kiesel. I think Kiesel Guitars rebranded itself, or pulled itself away from, as the company separated, the Carvin side and the Kiesel side separated. The guitar side, the Kiesel side, in 2015 has, in my opinion, done something I've never seen before, to take a brand and rechange it, rename it, and turn it into what it is now, which is a very desired product line, is very impressive. And I will say this. If you're a pro or against Kiesel, that's fine. I don't really judge you either way. We can all be friends. I will say this. You should really pay attention, if you're a guitar company this next decade, to watching what Jeff Kiesel and those guys are doing. Whether it is you're paying attention or not, they are really gaining a lot of ground in the social media platform as themselves and in the design platform. It's been a really impressive thing to watch. So that's I think the best brand image of the decade. The worst brand image is Gibson, of course. And I would love to say this. I was going to leave them off this list because I feel like, man, this is twice that I'm nailing Gibson on this. But I have to be honest. Not only was it a bad image for the decade, up until 2019 with the rebrand image. The sad thing is Gibson could have easily been my best image instead of Kiesel. In 2019, they rebranded, they restructured, they came at us, and I think they could have won us over like Kiesel did. But instead, as you know, they made a couple horrible blunders this year, and it's just really sad to see. And like I said, I hate to be this way, but it's a disaster to watch. And last but not least, the most innovative product, and this is a general product that I decided would be the aux attenuator with the IRs. Again, another product that you see everyone using because it gives you the ability to take things like your old amplifiers that you couldn't record with at night or go to gigs. It's a great product. There's a reason why you're seeing it everywhere. I finally got to try one out, and I have to say I was really pleasantly impressed. That is my list of the best and worst and most innovative products of the decade of 2010 to 2019. Whether you agree this is a decade or it's next decade or whatever it is, at least it's 10 years. It's the best product for the last 10 years. It's my opinion. Please have at the comments down below. Please tell me why I'm wrong or why I'm right. I don't mind. So put that down there below. I hope you guys are having fun, enjoying the new year. Of course, we got some cool stuff coming on the channel. I want to do this list. I thought it'd be fun. As always, I want to thank you for your time. And until next time, know your gear.